What is up, everybody? In this video we are going to talk about how to solve your problems in programming. Now, in programming, having technical problems are a part of our lives, and this was actually a question of one of my fellow subscribers during one of my live streams, and he asked how can we approach to solve our problems in programming, which is a very good question. So I decided to make a video about this. So before we dive into the steps, I just want you to know that if you are new to programming, you shouldn't get unmotivated when you are starting to face some technical problems. You will get better with time. Once you will start having experience in programming, then you will also see that you are going to get better at solving technical problems. So I was really curious, so I made a poll on my channel and I asked you guys, how do you solve your technical problems? And the majority of you replied that you are using Google as your first choice. But before we talk about Google, actually, when you face a technical problem, the first thing you should do is debugging. Because most of the time when a technical issue happens, we don't know why the problem is happening and where it is actually happening. So the first step you should take to solve the problem is actually to locate where the problem is of the code and why is it happening. And to locate where the problem is, you need to use debugging. So at this point, if some of you guys don't know what debugging is actually the process of finding and resolving bugs. And bugs in programming stand for technical issues and problems, but not insects, okay? So for web developers, for example, if you are working with PHP, then using the var dump method is a great way that we use for debugging. On the other hand, if you are a JavaScript developer, then you can use the console log method to debug your technical issues. So you should learn debugging as soon as possible because it is the first and maybe the most important step to solve your technical problems. Okay, so let's say that you located where the problem is happening. And now the next step that you will probably do is starting to think how I can solve this problem. And in this case, you will start approaching to problems like a real programmer. And like everybody answers honestly in this poll, we use actually Google a lot to solve our problems. Normally, it is not possible to memorize everything, and you shouldn't memorize anything in programming. So let's say that I have a solution to solve one of my technical problems, and to do that, I need to reverse a string, and I'm a JavaScript developer, but I don't remember how to do that. So what I'm gonna do is to go to Google and type there how to reverse a string in JavaScript. At this point, Google will return me some options like the MDN WebDocs or W3 Schools, or as an alternative that many developers use a lot is actually the Stack Overflow website. But sometimes our problems may require a little bit more visual things, and in this point, what I do is actually I go to YouTube and type the same problem, and then I will see some solutions, this time as tutorial versions, which can also be really helpful to solve our problems. The main thing I would like to give you is that no matter how experienced a developer is, we all need to use Google or YouTube to solve our problems. So if you are new, a beginner or a student, just don't be afraid of doing some research on the internet, reading some documentation, asking a question to Google or watching some tutorials. All of them will be very helpful for your future career. So especially at the beginning of your career, solving problems will be very difficult, but just don't get unmotivated. Once you start to solve problems, you will gain some confidence and some experience, which will be really helpful for you in the future of your career. But sometimes even using Google or debugging may not be helpful or enough to solve your problems. I believe which is really important to have a friendly, helpful team, okay? So at this point, what you're gonna do is to ask your team members or your colleagues that you are working together. So this is also one of the most important things in programming, I believe. It is very beneficial to work within a team because if you stuck somewhere, then it will be great to ask some other developers and probably they will know, or they can probably see what you can't see maybe at some point. So that's why working within a team is very important in this career, rather than being a one-person developer. Because at this point, if you are a one-person developer working on a project, then you need to solve everything by yourself. And this can be quite challenging for many people. But on the other hand, sometimes people working on your team can be unmotivated, or they are not willing to help you. This is a very important point. You should pay attention. So if you are not getting enough help, or you have problems with your team members, then you should consider changing your project. And unless you are working alone in a single project, then we should all try to become good team members for the long-term success of the project. So now let me ask you, which approach do you take to solve your technical problems? Feel free to share your ideas in the comment section below, and see you guys later in another video.